Hi. Today's episode, Pam and I chop it up about friendship, what it means to be a good friend, how we maintain our friendships even as we grow and change and get older. Do we have the same friends that we had when we were younger? And what does it look like when friendships go through rough patches? There's a poem that I love about communication and friendship by Shel Silverstein, and it's called Asians. If we meet and I say hi, that's salutation. If you ask me how I feel, that's consideration. If we stop and talk a while, that's a conversation. If we understand each other, that's communication. If we argue, scream, and fight, that's an altercation. If we later apologize, that's reconciliation. If we help each other home, that's cooperation. And all these things added up make civilization. And if I say this is a wonderful poem, is that an exaggeration? We hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello, my name is Pamela Stokes Eggleston, and welcome to You Good, an engaging podcast that delves into the realm of Black wellness. I'm joined by my co-host, Oneika Mays, and together we welcome you to the podcast, a space for meaningful conversations, fresh perspectives, a place for us. The You Good podcast is a love letter to our community and an invitation to connect, share, grow, and heal together. We're glad you're here, and we've got a lot to tell you. I really want to talk about the friendship stuff, though, because, I think, we can do grief and death later. But, I think the friendship stuff is really important. I'm one of those people that likes to do stuff by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have friends, even though I went to lunch with a friend and I do that kind of stuff, but then they're like, oh, I didn't know you were going to go to the National Arboretum. You should have told me. And I'm like, I didn't want you to come. So I drove myself because, it's a production with some of your friends. I just want to go. And I know that's that Pisces shit. Like, I don't need you, but I do need you. I love you, but
This is why we're friends.
Because I'm just like, I don't need to call 3 people. And then sometimes I'll be at places and I'll see my friend and I'll be like, oh, she showed up. Like, who cares? I don't care. Like, you should have told me.
That's funny.
We're adults. Like, sometimes it is what it is, So
Yeah. I'm happy to be talking about friendship.
Me too.
I've had some changes happening in my friendships, which I've talked to you about. But but what I like about friendship, a couple of things. One, I wasn't always a good friend for a very long time. And I even wrote about this in chapter 4, or the chapter that I talk about Meta and the enemy, where I think I said, I know I'm the villain in somebody's story because of how I acted. And I recounted a story of how I burned a friendship because I didn't show up for something. And I didn't think it was a big deal that I didn't show up. And I realized that I was really valuable in her life. And I didn't value myself. So I didn't value the friendship because I didn't think it mattered that much if I showed up or if I didn't show up.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a really eye-opening thing for me. Do I think that I would have burned the friendship? Probably not. But that's the way it goes. You know what I mean? People are entitled to do what they need to do in a friendship, and I wasn't delivering. So the friendship ended. Working for a series of gyms, and she was a member at one of my gyms, and she gave me a really icy reception. And I remember the person at the front desk was like, "Ooh, what'd you do to her?" Like, it's a long story, but yeah, it was a lesson. It was a lesson I learned, and I think the more I started to value myself, the more I valued my friendships and really learned to expect things from myself and from other people when it comes to friends.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I am, as you were saying that, I'm thinking, how many friendships have I destroyed? And some of those have been unwitting. Like, I don't know why I was ghosted, or that's what the children are calling it now. The people just don't return your calls and you're like, hey, I'm checking in, or what's going on? How are things with you and your family? How are things at your job? And silence. And you start playing that over in your head like, well, what did I do? What what was the one thing that set it off? as I haven't been a good friend, but also many people haven't been good friends to me, is that they've been removed. Sometimes that pulls at the heart.
Hmm.
Like I really, in these past few years have gone through that where it was heart-wrenching. It's heartbreaking. And then you're left to deal with it. Like you're mourning the relationship
Yeah.
gone. There's as a friend, especially if you were a good friend, there's that intimate connection that you had, and now it's been removed. And I think for me, and this is part of my ego work that I continually do, if I didn't make the decision to end it, quote
Yeah.
unquote, then it's so much harder for me.
Yeah.
Right. So I take responsibility for that. Also being kind to ourselves. Like we were younger and we thought what we thought, and we've learned differently. Some of those things we went through with those friends and those friendships ending had to occur so that we could show up in our lives with current friendships, with our current partnerships or relationships in a different way. I think that's why we learn those hard lessons.
Yeah. As you know, now that I'm in my 50s, I also appreciate the power of friendship
Hmm.
with women, but also with men. And I'm friends with someone who does the work that we did, teaching meditation in prisons, and he's a dear friend, and our friendship is built on intimacy
Hmm.
and trust and honest conversations and difficult conversations, and it's so refreshing to have like a deep connection like that with my friends that's not romantic. And I don't think I was taught that growing up, that
Mm.
friendships needed to be nurtured and taken care of. And I think the focus, and I don't even mean this from a familial standpoint, I think even just societally, these were messages that I received, was that you work on romantic relationships,
Hmm.
you try to make sure that those work, or work relationships you also try to work on. And then there was this conversation about like girlfriends are like sisters and all of this stuff, and then navigating my queerness through all of that, what does that look like, and then realizing that I wanted deep intimate connections with my friends, especially friends who are women, and I have that now. I don't have a lot of friends, but the friends that I'm close with, they're really deep, and they're not necessarily people I talk to all of the time. I
Right.
have somebody who feels like a sister to me, and I talk to her, I think maybe once a year, and she feels the same way. We call ourselves sister from another mister. I mean, we are so close, and we have that friendship where I have not seen her in person in years, but she could come here, I could go see her, and we would pick up like nothing happened.
Hmm.
And that intimacy is there. It's not like it's a surface relationship or only based off of fun or partying. It's very intimate.
Yeah, I have a friend like that too. We've been friends for years. And if I called and said, "Hey, I need your help," if I was in a jam, immediately she would come. She'd
Hmm.
probably bring her whole family, but they would come. They'd be like, "What is it? How can we help you?
Hmm.
What's going on?" And
Hmm.
so, yeah, I think it's important to have friends like that because there feels it feels a need of I have somebody has your back, and I don't have to be on the phone gossiping or doing whatever, talking to them, every day or something like that. Like there's got to be these different categories of friends where you're going to be good regardless, and that's really important. It's gotten me to think about how I relate, and I don't have that many friends either. I think that's by design, not that I intentionally designed it, but it was more connected and inherent just to my personality and how I move through the world. I, I like the closeness of girlfriends or sister friends. And I also want to be free to do stuff on my own. as we talked about briefly before this, but I like to do things on my own. And I need somebody to understand that sometimes I want to do that. And sometimes that thing that I'm doing is resting. Sometimes that thing I'm doing is sitting outside in my backyard, looking at my trees, reading a book. I don't have to do the thing to say this is the friendship because we have to do these things.
And, I think I mentioned to you that I'm listening to Alex L's The Company We Keep right now.
Yes.
And it's just so powerful because she talks about radical honesty and being recognized in friendships.
Hmm.
And it's not necessarily about length of time or how often you talk with people, but what do you value? What do you need? What does that person need? How can you grow and evolve together? Because if we're always growing and evolving, the friendship should grow and evolve too.
Mm.
And I think what I've encountered lately with a few people in my life, that I'm not the same that I was,
Right.
like a decade ago. And has that friendship evolved with me evolving? And in some cases, the answer has been no. And, you know, rather than seeing it as a flaw of me or the other person, is it just recognizing that, this season is over of the friendship because we're different. And friendship breakups are really hard because we anticipate that we could possibly break up with a romantic partner, not if it's the person we want to spend our life with, but we know that that potential is there.
That's
Because that
true.
potential is there,
Hmm.
we work on keeping the relationship fresh. You commit to showing up every day and choosing that person. And even when there are rocky periods, you know that you've made that commitment to each other to tough it out. So we don't go into a friendship and say, like, hey, Pam, I want us to be friends. Should we do our friendship ceremony? And if people do that with a friendship, then you're making that vow and then vowing to stay open with your communication around it. And I know that I haven't done that. And I think in the case of one person that I'm thinking about, like, I think I'm really different. And my partner pointed that out to me. Like, I don't think you're the same that anymore. And I think that might be what you need to be thinking about. And that was a real aha for me, for her to say that. Like, you've changed. You're different. And what was important in that friendship or what was sustaining the friendship is not the same anymore. And is that the conversation that you need to have?
Yeah. Yeah. I think often especially when we were younger and we had friendships, the glue that was holding those relationships together was definitely different. Sometimes it was fragile. It wasn't the monkey glue, it was Elmer's. It was easy to peel away. And you didn't have to know what the reason would be for that to peel away. It was easy for a friendship to fall away. What do they say? Friendships are for a reason, season, lifetime. And so often the friendships fall into those categories, but you're right. There is no ceremony or ritual around really robust and intimate friendships because I think the society, I have no proof of this. I don't know if anyone's done a study on this, but I don't think society really supports friendships in that way. I don't think society supports community. I don't think society supports friendships. I think this is something that we have to work towards. And in some instances, it's harder than a relationship, a romantic relationship where you fall in love, you do, check all the boxes, or even, like you said, a work relationship. When you're seeking out a friend, or you want to have friends, what does that look like? I remember looking at this woman's video on Instagram during the pandemic. And I remember thinking, oh, she's cute. What's she going to talk about? And she was crying, but it wasn't performative. It was like, I am so lonely.
Mm.
I moved to the city. I had no friends where I moved from, but I really feel lonely now. I have no friends. Where can I get friends? And I feel like this society does not support younger people in developing relationships in that way as it relates to communication, like how to communicate what you feel, where could you go to meet these types of friends. I also think that the weirder you are, the harder it is. Even though weirdness is becoming, I don't want to say weirdness is becoming mainstream. I think people say, "Oh, I'm weird." And I'm like, "You're not. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
just you just put a little pink streak in your hair and
Mm-hmm.
but you're still you know what I mean?" So that's what I think. And I think and it made me sad. It broke my heart because I'm like, man, she has nobody. And then people were typing in the comments, you're here for a reason, just giving her what she needed. And I think in that moment, which was encouragement, you are needed on this planet, all of the things that you say when people put out, it was kind of like a distress signal, like she has no friends. And I feel like a lot of people are moving through society and they have no friends. So what ends up happening is the work relationships get dumped on. Like, in any intimate partner or marriage relationship gets dumped on. You put everything into that partner, that spouse, you put everything into that work relationship. And the friendships are there to kind of, in my opinion, balance or offset things. You should not be, I don't think personally, I'm speaking for myself, having had relationships and, and being in one for a long time, you should not put the needs of like whatever that girlfriend friendship thing, that should not be put into your partner. You can be friends with your partner. But if that's the only person that you have, I personally think that's unhealthy. And
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people do that. One, because they were told to do it. I heard this preacher say, once you get married, you shouldn't have any more single friends. Can you believe that shit?
That is wild.
Like I'm supposed to give up. Like, are you out of your mind?
That is wild.
You're supposed to only have married friends. I said, are you kidding? I don't like half of the married couples.
And,
You know, that's
and
crazy.
this brings me to queerness because I think that heteronormativity and predatory capitalism definitely don't set us up for true, nurturing, important
Right.
friendships because of things like that. Your husband, if you're hetero, needs to be your best friend in your world. And with queerness, you're marginalized. So there is a bonding that can happen because of that marginalization, and there's an acceptance that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to, and there's racism in here too, right? So there's a little bit
Right.
of that, but queerness in itself is pushing back against what a standard is. So there's a deepness and an intimacy that, if you're not careful, can be false intimacy, right? Just because it's almost like trauma bonding based on the marginalization. But there's community that says, we know that you've been ostracized and we accept you, like we love you. And I think we see this in lots of queer communities. There's an acceptance there. There's friends that become family there because so many folks get rejected by their family and don't have a place to go. So friendship becomes actually ultimately even more important sometimes than romantic partnership, because it's people who hold us and see us, because people, when we come out, are some people reject us because of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's something to be said for queerness and friendship too, and being able to be seen or recognized for who we are. But I was also thinking that, I think about like people when they're younger, like, let's be blood brothers or blood sisters or those things. Like, that's almost a bond or a ritual that you,
Mm-hmm.
right? When
That's
you're
true.
to like, hold on to, your friendship, or like a club that really bonds people.
Yeah.
I didn't have that as much because of where I grew up, and I grew up in a mostly white neighborhood, so I didn't have that tight of a bond. But I think but then things changed so much, and we got away from this idea that life should exist outside of what we do for a living. And when I was really focused on my career before I shifted to, what I'm doing now, my friends were all related around work except my romantic relationships. So
Right.
when I left my career and started to become a yoga teacher, I felt really lonely because I didn't
Right.
have friends anymore because all of my friends were around what I did for a living. And it
Mm-hmm.
was really eye opening. And I started to realize like I didn't even really know much about my neighborhood or
Right.
what was going on in my neighborhood. And I really had to, that's when I shifted a lot, I think, and said, I don't really have community and I want to build that. And I made a conscious effort to build that.
Wow. I think it's easy for us in this society, I think, especially as you and I both come from corporate backgrounds and
Hmm.
things like that, to spend so much time in those environments that it's almost inevitable for you to walk away with some friendships because you meet like-minded people at the place that you're working at. You're talking about the work, you're going out to lunch, you're breaking bread, discussing ideas, brainstorming and doing budget and all of that, right? So I think I understand that if you were leaving a career and going to a completely different career, how difficult it may be to form new friendships. I think for me, I I was laid off and that was, let's see, that was probably, I was like, I got a fat severance package, I got unemployment. I'm like, let
Hmm.
me see what I can do. I dove into the military space because I was doing advocacy work there. I went to these places that already had kind of the community setup of a studio or a community center with activities, and I made bonds that way.
Hmm.
And then I feel like when I started training with yoga, Reiki, and some other things, that community kind of happened. And I've stayed in that community because I love it. But also I still have friends and connections in the military family space. I still have friends from my corporate days. So, and I would almost say maybe not friends so much because maybe they're not as close. Maybe they're more of
That's what I was,
acquaintances. So let me let
that's
me
what I
let
was
me,
going
let
to
me back up because we're talking about how we really don't have that many friends. And I know a ton of people. Like I know a lot of people who would probably say, "Oh, Pam's my friend. Pam's my friend," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know them."
say. Hmm.
But are
Yeah.
we friends? Like I think, social media has made us think that everybody you meet is a friend. Everybody,
Your social relationship with people and then you think they're friends. Yeah.
right? And that's not what I mean. That's not. I don't think that's what we're talking about. I
No.
think.
I think when yoga found me, I started to really look at myself and say, what do I need and what can I offer?
Hmm.
And I think before my friendships were rooted through a capitalistic lens and it was more like, what can I get?
Okay.
One of my best friends in the world I met when I was working at Barnes and Noble, and she's still one of my best friends. But it was because
Hmm.
we would go out or it was rooted in kind of partying. And then, yes, there were some that had deep conversations, but it wasn't, I don't feel like it came from inside. It was like something that I found outside.
Hmm.
And once I started to really do a lot of therapy and healing, I started to ask myself, well, what do I even want? Like, who am I as a person outside of what I do for a living? And it wasn't until I really started doing therapy and practicing, I could say, like, oh, I like this and I like that. And I'd like to connect with people who know themselves and who want to show up in the world a certain way. And I want to show up in the world a certain way. And I want to show up in a relationship like that. And I felt really naked for a period of time because I felt like a baby giraffe learning how to walk because it was a new way of moving through the world. And it felt very vulnerable to show up without the pretense of work or something. I think I used to show up with pretense as like protection, and
Hmm.
yoga stripped all of that away. And it was like, this is just me. And I think because now I think I'm processing this correctly. And because I didn't think I valued myself,
Hmm.
I didn't want to show up just as myself. So I needed something else to sort of like offer because I didn't think I was enough. Boom.
Got it. I was really careful with when I went out from work and people were like, this is my friend or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And being introduced to people. I would have a club soda and lime.
Mm-hmm.
Club soda and lime. Rarely did I drink.
Mm-hmm.
I did one time, and I have a low tolerance, so I don't need to be out.
Mm-hmm.
It takes one glass, and I'm like, you know, of wine or something. But once I was like, ooh, I feel a little tipsy. I can't do this. I can't do this because because I didn't feel they were friendly.
And you didn't feel, you weren't in a safe,
Right.
which is,
And
I
so,
think, one of the components that I look for now in friendship. I know that I'm my only safe space, but you want to
yes,
feel a sense of safety
yes,
in friendships. I want to be friends with people who see the world the way that I see it. And
that's true.
I think that's really important. And when, I started teaching at Rikers and really got rooted in advocacy,
Hmm.
I didn't need to be friends with everybody who was doing that kind of work, but people who knew what was happening in the world
Right.
and who were committed to working on themselves to be a part of that change. I don't mean that they needed to be out in the streets, but were they self-aware? Were they doing things to take care of themselves so they could show up as a good human and the planet, to a kind human? And I think that became important to me, and that wasn't always something that I cared about before.
Mm. I see.
And maybe that's because these were people, most of the time they were people that I worked with,
Hmm.
so I knew I had to work with them, so there was that. But a lot of, as I mentioned, a lot of that shifted when I began to practice and I wasn't in that world anymore. The older that I've gotten, I things have also shifted. There's more life behind me than in front of me, so I truly want to know, like, I'm spending time with you because I really want to, because time's limited.
Time is limited.
Like, we don't get out of this alive, so why am I wasting my time in a relationship that I don't feel valued or feels frivolous or isn't doing something for me or for you? And what's the point of that? Like, I don't need to do that.
We're both in our 50s. Well, you might live till you're 110. You never know.
You never know.
But I think that if you have a work relationship and then you have your intimate relationship and then you have friendships, you can't be dealing with horror across all those three things. Like you gotta, like I feel like if you get 2 out of 3, you're great. 3 out of 3 is phenomenal. 2 out of 3, you're doing good. If it's one, if you gotta go home and you don't like going home to the person, if you gotta go to work and you don't like going but in your friendships, you're, I'll say this word, but I don't mean it entirely, burdening with the fact that you don't like going home and you don't like going to work. And I mean, this is where therapy comes in, but also what choices are you going to make, right, about these types of relationships so that you don't burden the friendship so much.
Yes. And asking, right? Like,
Right.
do you have time to process
Time.
something with me? Like,
Right.
I learned that working at Rikers and working with a lot of people who do the kind of work that we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
That you don't just call somebody, you text and say, listen, this happened today. Do you have some time for me?
Mm-hmm.
And respecting the friendship, right? And asking for permission, because I think that's important. I think there are a lot of assumptions that get made with friendships, especially with women, that we are always just there to receive and accept everything. Can I talk to you about something? I don't think that happens enough. But I think I learned that too when you learn trauma informed
Right.
practice.
When you learn that and then you practice it yourself,
Yeah.
because I'm still a work in progress. I notice if I can tell, and I'm much better at it probably because of the yoga and the training, because I usually just call people and be like, girl, this is whatever and I'm trying to work this out. And I had people call me and just dump, and I'm trying to fix like, you tell me that this man did what? Okay, we ride at dawn. Like what? However, if you're going to get back with him, then I'm not. You can't call me and say he's a son of a bitch. Like I'm not that friend. I know there's a lots of friends who are like that. I'm like, are you going to work it out? Like you can complain, but if you're like, I'm packing my bags, and you keep going back and forth and back and forth, and I had a friend that did this. I was like, I'm done with him. Like even if you're not, and that changed the trajectory of the relationship, of the friendship, because then she had made that decision. And then he was like, Pam is a horrible person because he knew what was going on because I was ignoring him. Like I was ruthless. It was kind of ridiculous. He'd be in the room and I'd be like, I'm looking right through him. Like, I'm not talking to you. I'm not, because I know what you did. And so it's just hard for, I'm the type of friend, I'm going to hold space for you, but damn it, you got to hold space for yourself. You got to, and the reality of some of those types of friendships like that for me was I have a problem. So you have to look at self, right? I have to do my own svadhyaya work,
Yep.
my own reflective work with putting my friends on a pedestal.
Mm-hmm.
I have that issue.
Yeah.
Now, if some of my friends have said, "Oh, I want to be put," and I was like, but no, because when I do that, then it's like it's not that people can't be infallible or they can't screw up, but I'm like, I'm here for you. I'm a girl's girl. If this
Yeah.
dude's treating you like, then I'm
Yeah.
I'm done with him. And then you're back with him. It's for me. It's that's and I'm still a work in progress on that because I feel like people should be able to share stuff while they're working through things and not feel like Pam's trying to come in here, swoop down and save the day, which is not the case. I I want you to, like you said, there's not that much time for us, but time moves slow, but then it doesn't. And
Yeah.
what are we doing with the time? And are we spending time with humans who truly value us? I mean, and then they have to value themselves. And that's always, I think, the the rub is how do I do this? So I show up as a friend who's like, I'll drive up there and we gonna handle this. I have a machete in the back. I'm not in a shovel. Like, don't
Mhm.
call me. And if you're like, Pam, I just need to vent. So my sister has learned how to do that. Or I just wanted to share. I just want, like, don't fix it. And then I also had to get out of the mindset of, and not that you can fix it, right? Not that you, but sometimes people need to talk. And yes, people are going to therapy and stuff, but sometimes they want to share that with a
With their
friend.
friend.
Yeah.
And learning how to articulate that and say, I just want to, and being able to say that when you're telling somebody something like, hey, I just want to vent. Can I vent to you about something? And I'm not looking for any feedback. And being able to articulate that. And I think that is something that needs to happen more in friendships, being able to articulate your needs and being friends with people who can receive that. Because
Right.
some people aren't okay with just hearing somebody vent and not offering feedback
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because they feel so pulled to be able to offer feedback. And there's not always enough radical honesty with platonic friends to say, I don't need that from you. But in romantic relationships, like if I'm venting and, Andrea wants to fix something, I'll be like, I'm not looking for a fix right now. I'm just looking to vent. And she'll say
Mm-hmm.
the same thing for me. I just want to say
It's
this.
true.
This is happening. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, okay, I need to shut up.
Right.
But I don't always do that in my friendships. I have a couple of people that I do that with, but I don't do it all of the time. And those are the kinds of things that I've been thinking about as I've been listening to the company we keep. Like, how honest am I when I'm not comfortable with something? Am I speaking up the same way that I do in my romantic relationship? And of course, it's not the same. That's not what I'm talking about. But the level of vulnerability and honesty can be the same because I have that with one of my dear friends. I'm incredibly vulnerable and honest with her. And she knows just about everything there is to know about me. And that is it's a really beautiful thing to be able to be witnessed like that. It doesn't mean I need to burn all those friendships to the ground, but it's worth asking, well, why am I not witnessed that way in my other friendships, and what is that friendship bringing to my life, and what am I bringing to the friendship with that other person? What are they getting from me?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I think I'm a work in progress still. I
Mhm.
think I I love deeply, and so that's a reflective point for me where when I do let people into my lives,
Mhm.
I'm like, where can they be?
Mhm.
Where can they be? I'm going to go with the flow, be easeful about whatever this manifests into, but also how is that going to feel in my heart? Where am I being led? Right? In that potential or prospective relationship or friendship. And I think about that often because I do go places by myself
Mhm.
and I do meet people,
Mhm.
and it's nice to connect with folks and be friendly. But then also what as now I'm in my 59th year, what are my expectations for a friendship
Mhm.
that were different, even 5 years ago or
Mhm.
a decade ago?
Mhm.
And to be just to sit in it, just to be honest with it.
Yeah. And that there are differences. There's people that I'm in community with. There's
Mhm.
people that are acquaintances. There are people who are peers that I work with or are in the same space that I'm working in, who I wouldn't necessarily call friends, but they're a peer. And then I have a small circle of people who are friends. And I think me being able to also make those distinctions has become very important. And not everybody needs to be your friend.
That's true.
Not everybody needs to be your friend, and I don't need to be everybody's friend. There are some relationships I work with this person. This is somebody that I'm in community with, and we have a close, deep, intimate working relationship. But this isn't somebody that I'm going to call if something happens, because they're not my friend, and that's okay. And that's okay.
That's fine.
And I think that's okay. And it doesn't mean, and that this is why, like the four qualities of the heart in Buddhism are so important, because you can have a loving relationship with the world, but it doesn't mean that everybody is your friend.
Right.
I can be deeply, but that doesn't mean that they're my friend. And I think that's, I think that's something that I'm recognizing as I'm getting older. And it's made, I think, parts of my life really rich and really deep because I'm recognizing that. And I'm also grieving some things that have fallen away
Mhm. Yes.
because of that too.
Mhm. My mother used to say when I would have these friendships in high school and college, and I used to think it was like so mean, but like they're not your little friend. Not everybody's your friend. And I was like, and be clear, when she said it, 99.9, it always came to pass.
Right.
She wasn't lying.
Hmm.
That she could see it, but she had that lived experience.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why can't I be friends? I was in high school where I was friends with a punk rocker. Like she was like goth, and
Hmm.
we would go to like punk rock stuff and go-go stuff. Girl, she loved we were just all over the place. And I liked weirdness like that.
Uh-huh.
And but she was struggling with her own stuff, like family stuff, and she was finding her way. Like I think we both were. I think that's why we were drawn to each other. And my other friends who didn't like that we were hanging out were like, "Oh, she's just using you, and I was like, "Okay." Like, but y'all don't want to do the weird stuff.
Hmm.
So it was like I'm trying to figure out who like to be around, who I'm having a good time with, who in this moment seems to have my back, and maybe that's a friendship for a season or reason. Like I don't know, but I remember having those experiences in high school and definitely college. I would have friends come over. My mother was like, "They're not going to be your friends," and
Hmm.
what we hung out to. We're she every time Onika. Every time I would try to fuss with her, no. And to this day, I feel like I mean, I feel like I have really good friendships, right? Like I feel like I have connections. Some of those are spiritual. I can't explain. I'm connected to people. It's and I know I'll continue to be connected to people. Other friendships are like, oh, they're kind of like a slow burn and then they fizzled out for whatever reason. But during that time it was great, you know? And so I think I've gotten better at discerning who can be a friend and who can't be. But then you if you factor in a covetous nature, if you factor in envy, if you factor in jealousy and of other people, of how you've been of other people, I think that turns the friendship into a different monster in and of
Mm-hmm.
itself. Like how can you, if you have my back, how can you support me but in the back of your head you're envying me,
Mm-hmm.
even though I think there's a way to process that. So I maybe 80% agree with Oprah when she said, if you're jealous of me, we can't be friends. I don't know if you heard that when she said,
Mm-hmm.
if you're jealous of me, we can't be friends.
Mm-hmm.
You're Oprah, so people are going to be jealous if you have a jet. Like
Mm-hmm.
jealousy and envy to me, I think there's levels. I think there's jealousy, I think there's envy, and then I think somebody's coveting you, like single white female.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that movie kind of,
Yes.
I want to be you, like I'm coveting, you know. But and I think you went to Jamaica for a trip. Oh girl, I wish I could go. It's a
Mm-hmm.
little twinge of the green-eyed monster. But it doesn't mean I don't think that that means that's the end of the relationship, you know.
So either I think what I've been experiencing lately in, these years of my life is being able to talk about difficulty when it arises and conflict. How do friends deal with difficulty when it comes up?
Mhm.
You fight with your partner. How do you fight with your friends, and being
Mhm.
able to fight with your friends and come through it? And I think the first fight or argument or disagreement that you have with a friend and being able to repair and knowing how to repair, I think is really important. And if you feel safe enough to be able to express anger or discomfort or sadness or whatever, something that I've been reflecting a lot on as well.
Yeah, if you can't disagree cordially or agree to disagree, then I don't, and I'm not talking about morality
Yeah,
issues
yeah,
because I think
yeah.
some of that stuff is,
Yeah.
you know, we don't have to go into that right now. But I feel like if it's simple things, if there's a disagreement, you and I have
Mhm.
had that. I've had
Mhm.
that with several other of my friends, and how are you able to bounce back? And I've even had arguments
Mhm.
with friends, and we're able to bounce back.
Uh-huh.
And some of my friends are like, because I'm the one. So my friends are usually, I'm going to give you time to remember to reflect on what you just said to me,
Mhm.
like, and I'm like, damn, because I need to, sometimes you have friends who know how to handle
Yeah,
your shit. Like your shit. This is my shit. And then you get called out and you're like, oh, let me,
but
I'm gonna be mad for a week, you know.
yes. But that's what friendship is too, though. Being able to be called out on your shit lovingly. You
Exactly.
know what I mean? Like,
Right.
your
Right.
friends should be able to call you your friend. Yeah. Like when you're in deep friendship with somebody, can they call you in? Can you
You
call
are
them in?
when you are in deep friendship. That is, to me, that's the key. Because if you, like, I believe in telling people why I can't, and I haven't always been graceful at it, why I can't, be bothered with you anymore. Like,
Same.
I have not been graceful at it.
Same.
I have, however, said, I don't like people who gossip all the time
Mm-hmm.
to certain people. I'm just using this as an example because I
Mm-hmm.
remember this person. And they were hurt that I ended a friendship. I said, listen, you're talking about, this is ridiculous how much you gossip. You talk about people. And it definitely was a reflection on her and her self esteem.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to hear that all the time. If I tell you something 3, 4 times, you don't have to do it. But what I'm not going to do is be around while you continue to do it. Like and it doesn't matter. That may seem like a small thing. And I think that's where people get, well, it's not a big deal because this person does it or that person. If I say, and this has just been my thing. So I think for the most part, I've tried to express that and
Mm-hmm.
I've tried to share that. I don't feel, and I have to think about this for a minute, that I have been told why people stop being friends with me
Mm-hmm.
as much as I have told other people. I
Mhm.
think people just are like, I can't, and I don't know if that's what the reason is. I can't talk to Pam.
Mhm.
I'm scared to bring this up,
Mhm.
or I just don't feel like dealing with her. So I'm just going to go off into silence. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Or someone else has to tell me something. And
Mhm.
that's when I am really like, okay, I'm done. Because if you have to relay something through somebody else, then what are we doing? What are we doing? There's no trust. That means there's a trust issue.
Yep.
And what is there to repair? Right? What is there to do after that?
Mhm.
So I think as I'm in my elder years,
Mhm.
or we are elders, aunties, rolling into kind of our new space, and in these arduous times as well, is who is going to be there for us? How can we have a equal titration of give and receive?
Mm.
How can we have a holding of space that is authentic and rich and supportive? How can we cultivate those friendships, whether they be on the periphery or become something deeper?
Mhm.
How can we do that in this day and age? To me, that's part, not all, but part of developing community, which you and I talk about.
Mhm.
But it's like a Venn diagram. It's like a different type of diagram. Like
Yes,
some
no.
people,
Yep.
are going to be your friends. Some people are going to be acquaintances, peers. Some people you're cool with, but you don't love them. I think about the civil rights movement and how many of those people were friends, but also many of those people weren't.
We're not
They couldn't
friends
stand
at
each
all.
other.
That's okay. Because you don't need to be in deep friendship to build community. You need mutual respect. You need mutual understanding. You need an unconditional friendliness and centering humanity.
Hmm.
But, I don't need to break bread with you. Like,
Right.
to
Right.
know that I want you to be safe, because if you're safe, I'm safe. Like, and if we're working on that together because we're trying to bring this shit down, like,
Right.
yeah, let's go ahead and plan. But yeah, and I think that is really important for the future. We all need to be having discussions about. I think for those of us who, you know, are looking beyond being stressed out with what's happening in the world, because I'm tired of being stressed out with what's happening, and I'm
Hmm.
ready to think about what's next.
Hmm.
And thinking about what's next means thinking about my neighbors, means thinking about, who's going with you,
Hmm.
like
Hmm. Hmm.
who's going to be with you, and who are going to be your friends, who are going to be with you, and who are going to be community members. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the tenets that you mentioned can be the start to a friendship,
Mhm.
but then it's the energy you put into it. It's the continued building of trust that you put into a person.
Mhm.
The continual kind of reciprocated give and receive.
And the work that they're also doing on themselves, and the work you're doing on yourself. How are they taking care of themselves so they can show up in the world? That's also a part of it too.
Yes, I do think that's important. And
Mhm.
so I'd say I'm in a good place,
Mhm.
like in terms of my friendships. I have one friend who I'm questioning like what's going on.
Mhm.
But I feel like, where have I not had this in
Mhm.
my life?
Mhm.
And I don't know, I don't feel that there's anything nefarious going on, but I feel like this person has pulled away, and I don't know why.
Mhm.
And I'm like, if you can't tell me, or if it's you're caring for someone, because often it's caregivers that
Yeah.
can be it too.
Uh-huh.
And so, and also having the awareness of, this could be where this goes. This could just be the the beginning of the end of it. Like, I don't
Mhm.
know. And of course I hope not, because this person is she's lovely.
Mhm.
But that's just real. So, I mean, I'm intuitive, and anybody with eyes can see sometimes, or not even sometimes, but most of the time, like when things are just not the same.
Right.
And that if one person made sure that the things aren't the same, and
Mhm.
you have to respect it,
Mhm.
right? You have to respect it. I feel like I have the wherewithal to understand that and know that, and also I have the space to cultivate the current relationships, friendships that are in my life.
Yeah.
That where people have truly been there for me and
Mhm.
are truly holding space for me in their hearts and minds, even if we don't talk once a week or
Yep.
whatever people
Yep.
talk. I remember Oprah saying she and Gail talk every day. And I'm like, wow, who do I talk to every I barely talk. I mean, for years. And I don't think I have ever like even my best friend, we would talk on the weekends.
Mhm.
So that was like one, and we would it would be like 2 or 3 hours for catching up, and
Mhm.
then if we had to go somewhere and meet somebody, we would do that. I and that was, people would say, oh well, if you're in a relationship is different. I'm like, no, that was when I was single. That was I wasn't talking to everybody. I was in corporate, like I was working like 60 hours. Like who has time?
Yeah.
And I was in grad school, so like I mean, who has time for that? I mean, I didn't. I make time for I want to have engaging conversation and I want to also check in with people. Sometimes it's a check in, like, hey, how you doing? I mean, I do that. I text you like if I haven't
Mhm.
heard from you in a few days, like what's
Yep.
going on? How's things? You check in.
Yep.
And people like, hey, and then I get a, whatever, like, I
Mhm.
have a friend who sends me Facebook things
Yep.
and I'm like, okay,
Or I send you voice messages.
yeah, yeah, we'll
Yeah.
send each other voice message. I do that too. I send it to I'm like, hey,
I feel like people do this more too because sometimes you start
it's
ty
easy. You hit that thing and you just talk. I don't want to type. Like it's once I found that whenever I don't know when iPhone created that, but it's been years. I've been like, let me leave this voice text.
Yep.
I'm not typing. You could do it while you drive,
Yeah, it's
in the
great.
car and just,
Great.
So you check in on your friends. You check in on the people. And then
I have one friend who we don't check in that much anymore. It's like every 6 months or so. But he'll leave me a WhatsApp message and it's like 10 minutes long.
oh my God.
But I love it because it's like a podcast.
Yes, checking. He's just
I'm like,
catching up.
I can put it on speaker. I can like do stuff, and then I leave him one, like, and then eventually we'll catch up on the phone. But I love it. I absolutely love it, and it's such a cackle when I get I look at my voice note and I'm like, got a little podcast from a dossier, hooray!
WhatsApp is actually an amazing. I mean,
It's the best. So yeah, I appreciate that kind of friendship too.
yeah, it's wonderful. You once every 6 months, once a week, once every quarter,
But yeah,
bi-monthly.
got to cultivate it, you know, have to respect it, and I'm glad that I know how to do that now. I need to speak up more in some cases when something goes wrong, but I'm learning.
Well, sometimes you have to sit with it.
Yeah.
You're thinking, did that really happen?
Yeah.
How does this feel in
I
my
can come
body?
off like I
Pew
can just
pew.
I can pop off at the mouth too quick. So it's almost like because I used to just say whatever was in my head, and now that I don't do that anymore, I think sometimes I overcorrect,
Right. Okay. Yeah.
and in some cases that I'm not coming out of my face and trying to make somebody cry. Like there's a middle ground. Just like learning. I learned
Monika's making people cry, friends cry.
friends, but I made some coworkers cry. I shouldn't be.
Stories
Yeah,
from
well,
back in the day.
shouldn't be rude
Yeah, if you're rude though,
and racist.
yeah, you might get called out. You might get cussed out.
That's a different thing. Anyway,
That's a whole nother
that's a whole nother episode.
the episode. How not to get cussed out on your job. Wellness. But we all want to be well. And I think friendships help us to foster wellness. I think really good, substantive, enriching, nourishing friendships help us navigate the world and and reflect upon how we are in it in any given time. How are we showing up? How are we being in this current iteration?
I love that. Well, before we go, I'm glad you're my friend.
I'm glad you're my friend too. And guess what? We are friends, and then we started working together.
I know.
So we
Yep.
did the opposite.
I know.
We were friends. We met online, and then we were like, "Hey, maybe we should do these things. Maybe we
Yep.
should connect."
And now look at us.
Now look at us. We were thinking about the same things, or I'll say similar things. We were moving in similar circles,
Yep.
being in the wellness space.
Mm-hmm.
We knew some of the same people. I mean, that's kind of hard, not knowing some of the same
Yeah, I
people.
know. Especially when we're talking about Black people in the wellness
Right.
space.
Black people in yoga is like, this person, that. We cultivate our friendship like daily, like in real time, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
I have other friends that I do that with where it's
Yeah.
like, I know you're there. I know you love me. I
Yep.
know I'm checking in on you. How
Mm-hmm.
are things going? Oh, I'm not doing so well. And then you just hold space for them
Mm-hmm.
in that moment. Is there anything I can do? I've just been really, in spite of all of the things that we talked about
Mm-hmm.
today,
Yep.
I have been blessed in having really good friendships. And I have to think, about my mother and how she navigated friendships.
Mm.
And when I saw her with friends and certain people she let into her life, it was kind of the titration of the give and receive, but
Yeah.
also, what do we have similar? How are we different? Who can I be friends with? And I know that my mother was she was just a trip because people would try to befriend her at work, and then they try to get in her business, and you just couldn't do that with her. Like, I mean really get in her business, like asking about her marriage and stuff. And she like, yeah, people,
That's weird.
it's so bizarre. It's so bizarre. And my mother was like, I clocked it. She didn't use that because this is a new term. But yeah, I'm not telling you stuff. Or she would lie and then they would find out later. And she was like, because it was none of your business. Like, because she liked to start. She's like, if you trying to start something, I'm going to finish it. Like,
Right. That's funny.
so yeah. But she taught me how to have friendships with people. I think, when she passed, I realized, okay, she's still not friends with this person.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would call everybody and I was like, this friendship went away and I didn't know about it.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I needed to as a
Right.
child, right?
Right.
But you going through the phone list and
Right.
the things you do, and it was just so weird. But also I was like, it took me a while. It took me some time to sit back and say, oh, she's not friends with that person anymore,
Mm-hmm.
for whatever reason.
Right.
And that happens. You outgrow friendships.
Mm-hmm.
You outgrow people. And sometimes people outgrow you, or you just move in a different direction.
It doesn't have to be dramatic. Sometimes
Right.
life just, takes us in different directions. I just went to a party on Saturday with somebody who, you know, I was friends with, like, I would see them often because we were practicing yoga at the same time and
Mhm.
all this kind of stuff. And, they moved away and the love is still there. I just don't see them as often.
Right.
So yeah.
Right. Right. People move away, people move near you, closer to you. I remember being in middle school and my best friend, middle school, high school, and my best friend in high school was moving to New York City. And I thought I was going to have a breakdown. Because when I tell you, when you're that young though, you're like,
Yeah.
this is and I'm in high
Whole
school and she
world.
was leaving after freshman year. And
Yeah.
she was like, oh my gosh. She understood my weirdness and things like that. And years later, we caught up. I was in New York for something, and her family moved to Chinatown, opened up a restaurant and all of that stuff. And years later, we connected, and she had been doing some modeling and stuff. And I said, oh, I modeled for like a week. Because we were both tall. Like, she's like, my girl. I was like, this is bull. Taking clothes off, putting clothes on. I was like, oh, I can't do it. But yeah, but we, and realized that we had these, connections. It was like weird connections. We had been out of touch for so long. So I think in some instances it's good to catch up
Yep.
after years, and
Yeah.
sometimes you just let sleeping dogs lie and
Yeah.
leave the past in the past,
Yep.
as they say. So, but it's been a beautiful experience. I hope that anyone listening to this podcast who may be struggling with friendships because society creates this harsh container of making it difficult to do, and also social media doesn't make it as easy or as, I'll say, fluid to be able to discern who's your friend and who is friendly,
Mm-hmm.
that there's still hope for you. You can do what you love to do and be bold and be daring and do the thing in spite of the fear you may be feeling. If you want to go to the movie, go to the movie by yourself. If you want to go to which I've done all of this, go to a restaurant by yourself. It doesn't matter if you know people. You want to go eat whatever you want to eat, and you're waiting for people to go to this restaurant that just opened. Go to the restaurant by yourself
Mm-hmm.
and sit there. It's peaceful.
It really is. It's a joy.
Mm-hmm. I think having a space of knowing who you are in any given moment, and we're older, so we have that kind of experience behind us,
Mm-hmm.
in addition to our training and just our lived experience, makes you, I say, value these times of being in good company
Mm-hmm.
with friends, and also being in your own good company.
My mom used to say, better to be alone than in bad company.
Yes, I completely, because you know how it feels.
Mm-hmm.
You know you love yourself. And even if you don't know you love yourself, you can love on yourself. You can still work on that. When you're with bad company, you're like, who are these idiots?
Yeah.
And how can I get out of here?
Yeah.
Ever been to a party and you're like, I need to escape?
Yep.
How am I going to slip up? Where's my coat? How can I get out of here without anybody seeing me?
Everybody's saying, let me just dip out. Yep. I've been
Dip.
there.
But she's right. Yeah, bad company is the word. And then you can't get those hours back. Like you're like, I wasted that time with people
Mm-hmm.
that were not cool at all.
Yep.
Yeah.
This was good.
This was a good discussion. I feel like this was good. I think it's needed. I think it's going to help somebody. I think
I think it's helped
somebody.
me. I think I
Oh, good.
feel, yeah, I feel full talking about this. Like I feel grateful to be able to talk about friendships, and I hope that people had an opportunity to reflect on their own,
Yeah,
who they are as friends and what they want. And, may all people out there find their people and feel witnessed and loved.
I agree.
Yeah.
May everyone find their person or persons.
Yes. Ashe.
Ashe.
And we will see you soon.
Take care, everyone.